Hey, property management friends, welcome to This Week in Property Management. You guys might notice something slightly different this week. The boss is gone. This opportunity doesn't come up very often, so we decided to jump in, and the theme today is going to be while the boss is away, the coaches will play. So Jeremy took a week to enjoy cooler weather in the mountains of North Carolina, and so the coaches here at RentScale grabbed the opportunity to talk about some really exciting trends that we're seeing here in the build-to-rent sector of real estate. So we're going to have Reese and Hannah, our RentScale Club coaches, join us for a discussion about the rise of build-to-rent and how business development managers are leveraging this opportunity to grow their property management business. But while we wait for some of our other friends to join us live, let's revisit a quick highlight from a past episode.
Is AI going to make our job easier or harder as property managers? AI is just here. It is the now thing. AI is going to help us maybe communicate with 10 or 20 people in the time span that we would only be able to communicate with maybe 2 or 4 people in the past. Now, with the AI tools out there, I can go into a stock photography site and I can literally say something like, I'd like a chart of a company growing, but instead of bar charts, I'd like doors. And it does it for me in seconds. I think we're really lucky that we get to go through these booms of technology innovation, and it's super exciting, and it's also super confusing for all of us who've got like a normal day job to do, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, my industry can change overnight.
AI is booming, and that's just one of the many topics we talk about on this show. So be sure that you're subscribed with us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, or X so that you can watch all of these industry episodes live and be the first to hear what's new and trending. As I said, I can't wait to welcome our coaches and really dive into the good stuff. But first, let's hear from one of our sponsors.
Hi there. Did you know that RentScale hosts one of the largest communities of property management sales professionals in North America? Well, my name is Reese Register, and I'm actually a previous BDM and currently a scale coach here at RentScale. We provide over 20 hours monthly of teaching and training and accountability to make sure that our BDMs are supercharging their sales business through inbound, outbound, and allbound. So if you're interested in learning more about supercharging your business, go over to rentscale.com. We'll be glad to schedule a consult and see how we can help you transform your business today.
All right, guys, right into the good stuff. I can't wait to bring out our special guests today. Before I dive into that piece, I would just love to walk through build to rent in general. So it's gaining a lot of traction. In fact, we just came back from the IMN Single Family Forum, where I don't think I sat through a single panel that didn't discuss the build to rent, or as they called it there, BTR communities at all. These communities have been gaining significant traction in 2024, and most of it's driven by changing housing preferences and economic factors. And this trend is particularly notable here in the US. And being in the industry of property management, we see a lot of opportunity, and our property managers are seeing increasing benefits and opportunities presented through these. So we're going to have Reese and Hannah on to discuss how our community is really pioneering the partnerships between developers, home builders, and property managers to skyrocket the growth of their property management companies. We're going to take a closer look at the rise of build-to-rent communities and some of the key statistics that illustrate this growth. Really, I think that these are gaining so much traction for a lot of different reasons. But when we talk about traction, what does that mean? So in 2024, the number of build to rent units has increased by 15% compared to 2023. And the surge is driven by growing demand for flexible living options and the relative stability of rental income. When you think about all of the different investments out there, crypto, sometimes real estate does return a more stable investment. We also always have the argument that you own an asset. So like with stocks where you don't really own an asset, you own something at the end of the day. And so I think this is becoming increasingly attractive for investors as much as it is for tenants. Major cities such as New York, LA, Chicago, they've all seen a 20% rise in BTR projects, really highlighting the growing urban appeal of these types of communities. The other thing we're seeing is occupancy rates in these communities are high, averaging about 92% across the United States. The high occupancy rates are indicating strong tenant interest and satisfaction with the amenities and services that you typically see. A lot of these communities are acting like master planned communities where you've got swimming pools and fitness centers and different things that a lot of renters may or may not have had access to originally. The third thing that we're seeing as far as trends go is investment in these projects has skyrocketed. So not only do developers and home builders and property managers want to get in on this, the finance people and the funding is really attractive for a lot of different people. We've seen a 25% increase in funding from institutional investors this year alone. This influx of capital is really a testament to the perceived stability and the profitability that BTR brings, making it a great investment for anyone that is financing it, developing it, building it, and managing it. Win, 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 win. It just seems to keep going. So why are they gaining so much traction? Well, I think for a couple of reasons. I believe that one, generations are looking for more flexible living options. Modern tenants, specifically millennials and Gen Z, are prioritizing the flexibility in their living arrangements, and build to rent communities and leases that cater to their type of lifestyle are allowing for them to do that. They're allowing for the space to have short-term and long-term rental agreements in one community. I know many communities, in fact, the one that I live in, restricts the amount of long-term rentals and doesn't allow any short-term rentals at all. So this is a place really built for them to be able to live the lifestyle that they are choosing. So there's lots of fewer HOA restrictions. And I think that that brings about a sense of belongingness and welcomed into the community. Second reason why I think that they're gaining traction is because of those amenities and services I was talking about. BTR communities provide a wide range of amenities like those fitness centers. Some of them even have things like co-working spaces, community areas, pet areas, dog parks. Overall living experience is what people are focused on. And these features are very, very attractive to renters who are seeking that community-focused environment. We also see a lot of the time, these build-to-rent communities as they come up are all new construction. And that new construction is offering renters the ability to live in homes that are updated with the latest design trends, the latest technology like EV chargers, and overall just brand new houses, which is very hard to find and somewhat appealing to a renter who's typically lived in an older home. Third reason I think they're gaining traction, affordability. You guys, I'm not the first person to say this, but with rising home prices and rising interest rates, many individuals are opting to rent rather than buy. The new American dream is home rent, not home own. And so BTR units do provide a cost-effective alternative to home ownership or their version of it. Usually, the communities offer high-quality living spaces without the financial burden of purchasing the property. And then lastly, most of these communities are set in a space where there's a lot of urban appeal. You can walk to a lot of different things, and there's community around you almost all of the time. The urban areas are experiencing a resurgence of popularity in recent years, with so many individuals drawn to just the lifestyle and the opportunities found in bigger cities. And that's why places like New York, LA, and Chicago are seeing this already. But I'm even seeing this launch into small communities that have little towns, and the BTR communities are surrounded around those. So it's prime locations like your LAs, Chicago's, and New York's, but I also think it's prime locations within each small community. So let's dive deeper into how we see property managers utilizing this trend to grow their companies, and how BDMs are attacking this new opportunity. And for that, I want to bring on our expert coaches, Reese and Hannah. Welcome, guys.
What's up? Y'all didn't get the memo?
We forgot Hawaiian Shirt Day.
I just raided Jeremy's closet while he was gone.
I was going to say, that's just so that Jeremy's represented on the show. That's your plan there, isn't it?
It was, whole time. Got the keys to his house and his wallet. It's going to be a good weekend.
It does sound like a good weekend. Yeah. Oh, well, welcome, you guys. Want to take a minute for those in our community who aren't familiar with you. Could you just briefly introduce yourself? And, I said when the boss is away, the coaches are going to play. So tell me a fun fact that you want people to know about yourselves.
Ladies first. Go ahead, Anna.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. My name is Hannah. I'm a Scale Club coach here at RentScale. Still fairly new. It's been about 2 months at the company, but I'm not new to sales. I've been doing this for over 10 years. I have a variety of experience in real estate, including a short-term multifamily startup back in 2020, helped build out the sales team there. Worked for a large PM company based out of Atlanta, was a top performing BDM there, moved into some property inspection software sales, and now I am here at RentScale to train BDMs on what I did myself. And my fun fact, so I live in Orlando, Florida. I'm a bit of a theme park aficionado. So all of my friends come to me whenever they need to plan their trips at Disney, if they need to go to Universal. I did work at a travel agency previously, so I still kind of dabble in travel agency sales with my friends and planning their vacations.
Love it. Thanks, Hannah. Reese?
Yeah, so my name's Reese, one of the scale coaches here at RentScale. I've been in the property management real estate space for about 6 years now. I was director of sales for a property management company in Tampa, Florida, which is where I currently live as well. Have not moved very far away from the white sandy beaches. I've enjoyed every minute of the journey and learning every day about the real estate space, and the amount of changes that it's went through just in the short 6 years that I've been there is just truly fascinating to me. Fun fact about me, I may gross some of you out, but we're going to go with it, is I eat an egg sandwich almost every single day. White bread, the good old Duke's mayo, and some scrambled eggs. And that is the breakfast, dinner, and lunch of champions.
Wow. Of champions, Reese. That's a strong statement. Reese eats a lot of weird things, but that's not what this episode is for. So I won't dive into that. Appreciate you guys being here. Love your expertise. You guys work with the 70 business development managers across our community, and you have more exposure and see more of what they're doing to leverage trends like build to rent. So today I want to talk with you guys about build to rent, what you're seeing BDMs do, and why property managers should maybe be grabbing onto this opportunity and figuring out how to participate in it. So let's start with Reese. Let's have a little discussion around the difference between a build to rent and a traditional for sale home.
Yeah, so build to rent, definitely growing in popularity, but there is a huge difference from a developer that's going to go build a traditional home versus a build to rent type of home. Traditional home, you're really looking for the flair, the top end amenities inside the home, making it have a lot of flash, not necessarily looking for the durability factor that you may see on the build to rent type of builds, which typically what we see is adding more bedrooms on the build to rent side versus adding the chandeliers, right? It's a lot of basic features, canned lights versus the nice fancy fixtures. Because build to rent, they're meant to have as little of maintenance opportunities as possible versus a traditional home build that someone's going to go in and they're buying. They're looking for a little bit more flair because they're not worried about the maintenance piece of it. They just want it to show nice. So there's a huge difference when you walk into the different types of builds that they're purposely built for. But it is unique. This space is truly something that I've been excited about, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But I've seen the smaller format, but also the larger format build-to-rent communities really taking shape, not only here in Tampa, Florida, where I'm at, but nationwide.
I love that, Reese. I think you're so right. Lots of, when I think about a build to rent community, I want to take everything to the next level and all the RH chandeliers and all the great stuff. But you're right, that's not how they're built. One of the things from IMN that we took away was that build to rent communities are different in the aspect of a lot of the functionality that people need to get to often, property managers need to get to often, is actually put on the outside of the home or in a special area of the home that the property manager can access. So things like air conditioning units and landscape clocks are put somewhere that's easily accessible. And so these things are thought through in these communities. I love that you highlighted that difference and think it's important. Hannah, anything else that you're seeing when you think of the difference between a traditional build to rent, a traditional community and a build to rent community?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of additions to these communities. So think of your standard luxury apartment. So you're going to have things like a dog park. You're going to have that community building specific areas. So you're going to have the pool. You're going to have the grilling station, things like that to really elevate that experience for these build to rent home communities.
Yeah, so I touched on it a little bit in the beginning of the show, but why do you think that occupancy rates in build to rent are so impressive? Why are they so much lower and tenants are coming into these communities outside of what you just said, Hannah, obviously the amenities, but what's the attract? What's the appeal?
Think about the typical apartments, so millennials are moving into these bigger spaces. A lot of people have pets, they want that big backyard, and it's their personal experience with that. So with these built to rent homes, they're given that more space and more flexibility rather than what you would typically see in like a smaller apartment community as well.
Love it. Let's dive into why this is great for property managers. Obviously, there's financing people and developers and builders out there, but we really want to zero in, and our expertise lies in the area of property management. So why is professional property management critical for these build to rent developments? Reese?
Yeah, so for property management companies, I think it comes down to two words, and it's lifetime value. The typical build to rent, you just touched on it, tenants are staying in those units longer, so you have less turnover. But also there's another element that why professional property management is needed is to keep those community standards up so that when the next person, when there is a vacancy, comes in and looks at it, they don't look at it as a rental community. It feels like one of those master plan communities that you would go into. And I'm going to talk a little about Disney World, Hannah. You've got, what is it, Celebration, or what is it? Over there, that community. Like when you go into that, you know where you're at. And there is that same exact feel going into these build to rent communities. And it takes a professional property management company to make sure that those standards are being upheld. That's what's going to keep those tenants there longer. It's what's going to make new tenants want to come in. It's going to appreciate in the property value for the owner of the entire build to rent community. So by having that layer there of property management, being able to monitor, facilitate, and keep all those standards up, it's a win-win-win situation for everybody involved, as Jen alluded to earlier. So it's a great opportunity for us to be there. And I don't want us to think that build to rent means those master communities that are 500 or 600 homes. There's some that I've seen that are literally 6 to 10 townhouses that are even together that are built to rent fee simple townhouses. So there's opportunity from small to massive in this space.
I love that. Hannah, anything to add there?
I think just the increased tenant retention, like Reese kind of mentioned, with these built to rent communities, that's one of the primary advantages. This enhanced property values as well. And just the streamlined management. Like think about the drive time as a property management company where you're going and doing inspections, and then you can kind of streamline that as well. You have these centralized systems for maintenance, security, and things like that that are really going to help.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So Hannah, to that point, why should these be super appealing to a property manager? Aside from obviously you get a big influx to your door count and to your portfolio. I understand that, but what's appealing for a property manager? Why would they want to come into this?
Yeah, I mean, of course, increasing the door count is great with the BTR and these bigger communities. But like Ree said, there are some that are smaller, maybe, 6 to 8 townhomes. One of the primary advantages is fostering that long-term tenant relationship. Some of these amenities and services are really going to be tailored to those renters' needs. They're more likely to renew their leases. You're going to have reduced turnover rates and those associated costs with that as well. The modern amenities are going to command higher rental rates. They're going to attract premium tenants as well. And then investing in these communities, property managers can really enhance the value of their properties and their portfolios. And then, like I kind of mentioned, that streamlined management as well. So for maintenance, security, tenant communication, really having that streamlined approach can lead to better, more efficient operations and then ultimately better tenant satisfaction.
I love it. I can't have expressed that any better, Hannah. I think that property management is never easy, but all of the benefits of a build to rent community should be pointing property managers to head straight towards and try to become part of this trend, at least in my opinion. So now I want to talk a little bit about how our community and the BDMs that are in Scale Club are actually taking advantage of this trend and trying to get in with a build to rent community. So where are you guys seeing that happening?
Yeah, so we've had a BDM that closed on a 93 unit build to rent community. Definitely took a little bit of nurturing through that process because it's not one of those one call closes. It's definitely developing some relationships with the developer and the owner. Sometimes these transactions are syndicated funds. So you have one person that's really leading the charge and has to get approval. So it's a longer sales process for the larger communities. But that was the 93 unit. But we've also got a client that's literally in negotiations right now to close down a 150 door multi-year build to rent community. So it's took a lot of nurturing. The proposals have went back and forth, right? Making sure everybody's aligned. But the really cool thing that I thought was neat about this deal is it's coming in layers because it's brand new built. They're getting 10 doors the first year. They're going to get another 50 the next year. So it kind of stair steps up. So it's not going to break your operations team. But the really cool thing, it's a 5-year contract for this build to rent community. So you've already baked in a lifetime value of 5 years. Now, I don't know what everybody else is seeing, but I've seen like lifetime value or a length of a relationships around 3 years in the property management space, especially for companies that specialize in the accidental landlord space. 3 years is about all you're going to get out of it. So imagine picking up 150 doors with a guaranteed 5-year deal behind it. And if you do what you're supposed to do and provide a high level of service and an experience to the owner and those residents that are going to be in that property, and there's a good ROI, the chances of them renewing that are very, very high. So it's a really cool concept how you can lock in a higher quality tenant, higher rents, higher revenue for a longer period of time. If that's not part of your business model, maybe you should rethink that. But that is truly a high benefit for these types of transactions, these types of deals for property management companies.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know how at this point, your Hawaiian shirt probably sold everybody from the very beginning. But at this point, we've sold property managers on why they should be looking at these build to rent communities, right? Better tenants, longer term contracts, multiple doors coming into your portfolio, houses built to manage, not houses that were built to, traditional style live in and whatever, but these are built to manage. So they're easier in some aspects. Everybody should be seeing that, but how are our BDMs getting in with these build to rent opportunities early? Because these developers are working on these deals right now. And if we try to leverage a community when it pops up, we're probably 5 steps behind or 25 steps behind. So what are we seeing our BDMs do to get in early with these communities and figure out where this stuff's happening?
All right. property management entrepreneurs, if you haven't listened to anything else we've said, now's your time. Go look at your website right now and answer this to yourself, because we can't see any of you, but answer this. Do you have a build to rent specific page on your website? That is where you need to start. Because if I am a developer and I'm looking to do a build to rent program, I'm doing the same behavior that your accidental landlord or your intentional investor is doing. They're looking at our digital presence, our digital office space. And if they don't see anything on there that specializes in build to rent, they're on to the next company. I looked at this, and there's about 1% of the market out there that actually has a dedicated space on their website that says, hey, we manage build to rent communities, and here's what we can do for you. 9 times out of 10, somebody that's looking for property management is going to your website. And if they're not seeing that advertised, you're already behind. Now imagine this. You watch this episode of This Week in PM, you add this to your website, and now all the other competitors in your market that haven't watched this, that same developer is going through and they see that on your website that says build to rent, this is how we manage it. The likelihood of them picking up the phone and engaging in a conversation is pretty dang good. So that's where everybody needs to start. So second level is getting involved in those real estate meetups in your area, going out, seeing what the buzz is, knowing who's buying land in the area and seeing if there's any trends that you're seeing behind that. But most importantly, you should be connecting with your local lenders. Typically, those big projects go through a local lending source, or at least somebody knows what's going on. You've seen when they're doing big communities, you'll see the big bank signs out front, who's helping them finance that. You should already have the relationship with those lenders. So when something comes up, they can pull you into that conversation. And it does take time. You're going to have to go out there and make yourself present in all of these forums, as well as going out on bigger pockets and seeing what the buzz is so that you're in front of it. That's the only way you're going to capture those, is to be in front of it, not after they've already broke ground and they've started building it. Most of these developers want property management as a partner before they even build the first unit.
They sure do. I'm seeing a lot of people want to line up finance, development, builder, and property manager before they even start. So what I've seen, at least here in Colorado, in the northern communities, there's actually zoning that your land has to fall into. And then the community has to actually be called out in the plans in your submission to the cities and the towns as build to rent. So I'd also encourage business development managers to stay up on that. In that, I think we talk a lot about next bound in our community, right? So Hannah, where are some places that people should be networking, or who are some people should be networking, BDMs should be networking with, to make sure they're building those referral sources, those next bound sources, your next source of business?
Yeah, I think Reese kind of touched on this a little bit. We do have some BDMs that drive around and see these build to rent communities, and they are calling on them. So just getting out on the road, I've definitely heard a lot of BDMs taking advantage of that. Reaching out to local lenders, thinking about real estate agents who focus on land development, working on those relationships. You can also, this was something big for me in Atlanta, go to these real estate investing meetups, meetup.com. There was a great one that I found. There was someone who'd been on like HGTV, like house hacking, and they were running this meetup. And so that was a great place to go out and just meet and see what's going on in the community. And a lot of people were talking about build to rent and thinking about also these large construction companies. It's really going to boil down to the people who are going to know your next client. So really thinking on that whenever you are thinking about how to get involved in this build to rent network.
Hannah, that's great advice. I think those are all fantastic places to go and network and make sure that you're just staying in front of the information. I also know that there are people whose jobs are land acquisition, right? So when we talk about networking with realtors, network with commercial realtors, network with the people whose job it is to acquire land, figure out who your local developers are. Even if they just caught wind of it, if you're in with them, then they might be able to hear that and pass on to you. So I'd encourage you to build some relationships outside of some normal channels that we're used to when you're talking about build to rent. All right. Guys, let's look forward. How is this going to change the way that BDMs grow their property management companies, or do you think it's going to change at the way that they're growing their companies?
I do think there is a change. Traditionally, we've looked at two different avatars, so to say, of our ideal clients. We've got the accidental landlord, which is someone that didn't intentionally want to have their home as a rental. And then you've got the intentional investor. And that's traditionally been the two that we look at. We have a brand new one, I believe, and it's slowly emerging as the build to rent type of client, and not in the multifamily space, in the single family townhouse fee simple type of space. So I do think that there's opportunities that's going to continue to develop around that. One thing that I learned just being in the market and doing the property management sales is look at the smaller opportunities just as much as you look at the bigger ones. What we did as property management companies, we were buying lots, building a 4.2 standard block home on it, placing a Section 8 tenant in that property that the property management company screened. And then we would say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Investor, I've got a brand new build to rent house for you that's ready to go. We can help you, navigate the financing. The tenants are already in place. We've got Section 8 going. Here's what it rents for. Here's your pro forma. And you could just sell that right internally to grow your base at a smaller level than looking at those master large communities. So I do think there's going to be opportunity out there for the future, and it's going to be a huge part of how the rental industry as a whole develops. I'm going to say this is kind of controversial, but I'm going to say it. We've been built here in the United States of, buy a home. That's the American dream. That's fading. Renting the American dream is something that's on the rise, and we can either ride with it or we can try to ride against it. We're in business, and this is one of those trends that we want to get on early so that we can position ourselves as expert in our market to manage those build-to-rent communities.
I couldn't agree more, Reese. If you want to go in on a build-to-rent community together, because I've got some land over here in Colorado, I got a builder lined up, I got a developer lined up. You know what I need? I need a property manager. I don't have one, but I'm sure I could find one.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Last question for you. If you had to, each of you, if you had to identify one action item or step that property management companies should take today to capitalize and build on this trend, I think we've painted the picture. This is a pretty good source of possibility and opportunity. So what would that be? What's one thing you would do if you were a property manager or a BDM today?
Get a website page up dedicated to build to rent.
All right.
Go talk about it. Go talk about the advantages. Create some social media buzz around it. You've got to position yourself as the expert. That's the first place to start. That is your digital storefront. And if people don't know that you do that type of thing, they're never going to call you and engage in conversation. Maybe you're not ready for it operationally, but at least you're ready to have that conversation and see what the need is in your community. So get it up on your site today.
Awesome. Hannah?
Totally agree, Reese. I love that you mentioned video. That is a great way to really spread the word and expand your network so people know who you are. So get out there and go network and meet these people who know your next clients and record some videos. That is a great way to sell yourself. Get on LinkedIn, get on your company page, record some videos, just some educational content on build to rent so that, Reese, as he mentioned, you become known as the expert.
Love it, you guys. Well, awesome conversation. Hopefully some property managers take this and do some great stuff with it. I really appreciate you guys being guests. As always, really appreciate the value that you bring to this team and to our community of BDMs.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yep. All right. So with that, I would love to thank one of our other sponsors. So we're just going to take a second to do that. And then guys, we're going to dive into the scoreboard. Today is scoreboard day. So let's hear from our sponsors. All right, guys, I am biased, but here comes some more great content. It is the scoreboard. Now, as you know, I am usually the one that handles this segment, and I'm excited to show you guys and walk you through May's scoreboard. All right, guys, here we go. For May, we had some really exciting stuff going on. Before I go into May and what it is that we covered and what records we set in May, I just want to talk briefly about April and what happened in our community in April that was really exciting, and skill development in May that we really loved. So we had record breakers in April. We have record breakers in May, which is always really exciting. Our BDMs in our community absolutely love winning. I think it's why they show up. But in April and May, our Scale Club Masters actually got to present lessons to our community. We believe heavily in masterminding and all of the different things that we can leverage from people who have done our jobs before us. No need to reinvent the wheel. We'll take advice from people who are already successful in the role. So masterminding is a huge part of our community. And in May, our masters presented on how to sell virtually. So as we talk a lot about investors and we talk about that specific target market, those investors aren't always in our market. And we're not always able to walk the properties because sometimes they're occupied. So when we can't do that, what should your sales presentation look like, and how do you do it virtually? It was fantastic, and we appreciate the way that everyone in our mastery community showed up to teach other people what has worked for them. All right, now the scoreboard. Well, those records, I keep talking about them. Let's break it down. First and foremost, I will say that community was 116% to goal in May. It's pretty incredible. And as you look at this leaderboard, you can see that we had some big door closers. Also really exciting in this, we had 2 brand new BDMs in club for less than 3 months who are now at the top of our leaderboard. Really excited for them and all the hard work that they've been putting in. But we've got Portland, Oregon at 46 doors, Detroit, Michigan at 44, both of those newer BDMs and doing a lot of the right things, incredibly talented. So congratulations to both of you. And Miami, Florida at 32, nothing to sneeze at. Definitely a vet in our community and always appreciated for his hard work. Chicago, Illinois, always at the top of the leaderboard and such a welcome asset to our community at 24. And then a new BDM again in Columbus, Ohio. So we've got people coming into this community who are giving our vets a run for the money, but really excited to see that the community as a whole closed 462 doors, which was up from April. On average, 9 doors across our entire community is what was signed, which is equal to what we saw last month, and 15 doors for the top 50% of our community, which is up by about 50% in the month of May. Now, all of this with decreased lead volume, and mostly the reason for that is we know the sales cycle. So in April, we reported lead volume almost double that. A lot of that was due to outbound efforts and some different things that property management companies were doing as far as marketing was concerned. And a lot of those leads, because of the 30-ish day sales cycle, closed in May. So we saw the fruit of those labors come through. 19 is actually the average, right around where we expect to see. So average number of leads for a property management company per month is somewhere between 19 and 22. So you can see we're right in that sweet spot, but it did decrease from the dramatic increase that we saw last year. So sorry, last month. So now I want to move on to our calendar of events. Jeremy is always careful to walk us through what's coming up. All right, guys, so on the calendar, Southern States Conference is coming up August 27th through 29th, and it is in partnership with Florida State Conference, and it is down in Sandestin, Colorado, or Sandestin, Florida. It's not in Colorado, it's in Florida. And then September 16th through 18th, we've got Texas-style NARPM conference in Austin. So excited for both of those events. We will be out at both of those events. In fact, we are speaking at Southern States, and we'll have some team present at Texas as well. So can't wait to see all of you there. This has been a weird month without any conferences. I'm not really sure what to do with myself, but looking forward to jumping back into it soon in August. Well, you guys, thanks for joining us for a special episode of When the Boss is Away, the Coaches Will Play. Hopefully you enjoyed it. That's it for us for this week. Be sure to check out all of the latest that's going on in property management and get details and show notes from today's show and guests. You can just head to strategicpm.com. Please like, subscribe, share, and most importantly, join us again in 2 weeks when your host with the better hair will be back. And that's what's happening this week in PM.